What's going on, everyone? My name's Tenebris Infinite, and welcome to the big information dump, the huge in-depth analysis for the brand new weapon pack that has launched today in Generation 0. This weapon pack adds 3 weapons as per usual with our Generation 0 weapon packs, adding a flamethrower, a bow, and a pitchfork. Adding a ton of merit to stealth play, and a new fun weapon with possibly one of the best reload animations in the game. The pitchfork adds a new medium range melee weapon into the game, and the bow serves an insane amount of utility, requires skill and patience, and is everything I had hoped for if we ever saw a bow in Generation 0. And then, this flamethrower, man, look at this! This reload is meticulous as heck, and I absolutely love it. So let's start off with the sound and design of these boyos, because that's the easiest to assess here off the bat. And the sound for the bow is great. You have a varying level of charge, and the sound of the arrow reacts to how much power you've put into the shot. These also will have different outcomes on the arrow's effect, and we'll talk about that later. The arrow noises are also reactive to what you shoot them into. Generation 0's sound design absolutely never misses. And it's the Flamethrower. It's great, dude, and it's got this kind of sputtery noise as you end the fuel tank. And the sounds for the reload animation are fittingly squeaky. And finally, the fork. Man, it straight up sounds like they went out and mic'd up a rake, then scratched the ground. It's, again, equally awesome, and reactive to what you hit, too, making a different sound based off the material. A small but nice touch to our melee weapons in the game. Design-wise, we'll talk about them all in a moment, but I want to really highlight the bow here. The bow's design is excellent, and it's really cool seeing the arrows have, different kind of looks and outcomes based on the arrow type. The explosive one just, blows it up into nothingness, but the flare one gets this really nice charred look to it, and the snapped-looking, broken arrows it looks really, really good when you shoot them into things. Weapon design wise, I think these are some of my favorite weapons so far, just based on how kind of unpredictable it was. Hearing that we're going to get a bow in the game, it's like, how do you picture it? And if you pictured a bunch of machine parts strapped together with a bit of duct tape in the middle, then you were on the right track. The pitchfork too just looks real gnarly with those claws on the end. And the flamethrower, once you get it up to the 5 crown level, this thing is absolutely shiny, man. It never gets old. And then, taking these weapons off into the bigger perspective here, again, I very much enjoy the design of these weapons, and it has me excited to see what the future of maybe a Resistance Pack 2 Electric Boogaloo would look like. I think Generation 0 is just a mountain of potential, not just in the realm of small arms and the different types of guns that we could use, but also in the realm of utilizing machine technology in interesting and creative resistance-y type ways. And this is our first example of that, and I think it's a damn good one. Now let's get into the combat, because that's a spicy thing that I think matters maybe a little bit more than just the nerdy stuff that we'll save for the end here. But a real quick pro tip, the best way to farm arrows? Ammo boxes, dude. You get 20 of them per ammo box, or per harvest from an ammo box, and it just saves you tons of wood and tons of farming. But combat-wise, the bow is a stealth monster. It has the smallest engagement range of any of the weapons in the game, and what I mean by engagement range is the moment you shoot the thing, how many machines will be alerted to you shooting that thing in the given vicinity. Learning how to handle the arrow's slow kind of projectile speed, as well as the drop that you get from the arrows, is definitely something that you'll have to adjust to here in the game. But once you get it down, it is the best method of stealth in the entire game. It's also the first, if not like only weapon in the game that justifies being able to attack a machine and have them not actually notice that you attacked them. It's very, very rare, but you can get away with it sometimes with the standard arrow, where you'll shoot the machine, not hit a critical component, and the machine will just be like, huh, what the heck was that? And then the explodey arrows, man, talk about having your cake and eating it too. And these flaros, man, they're probably the best utilization of flares in the entire game. Not only do you have the option of throwing out just a normal flare that drops to the ground, but you also have the opportunity to turn it into a sticky flare when you charge it the whole way up. And the bow does a serious amount of damage, enough to just 3-shot a hunter casually. Then the pitchfork, our first paid melee weapon, and it's so good! A melee weapon with considerable reach, offering a more safe option to use in close quarters. And melee weapons serve as huge boons for stealth play, offering the smallest range of engagement in the game next to now the bow. You can use these to wipe out entire packs of unaware machines. And with the pitchfork's considerable reach, you're able to set up some of the easiest stealth kills here in Generation Zero. It can take a little bit of patience, but with the power of prone, any amount of stealth is possible here in Generation Zero. And as a final aside here for the pitchfork, a recent hidden change in Generation Zero has been the player becoming immune to big explosions when they're mostly self-inflicted, which is massively beneficial to melee play. If you're going to use the pitchfork for combat outside of stealth play, then just remember to pack a ton of rad kits so that way you can have infinite stamina, and a bunch of med kits so that way you can heal off all the damage you're going to take. And for ticks, this video is just pretty much jam-packed for you dudes. I came up with a brand new ultimate tick counter. This requires really good timing, but basically you can prone to go underneath the range of damage from the tick. So if you can use like maybe a little bit of an incline to your advantage or something like that, you can go prone underneath the tick, spin around, and get it once it lands. Pretty much serving as like the hunter counter, but instead for ticks. But for normal tick killing, this thing's pretty good. It's about as good as you would expect poking a bird out of like midair with a stick would be. But as long as you can land it, you have that reach benefit, so you can avoid the ticks pretty efficiently and utilize that reach to get at them a little bit easier. And then last but not least...
Mathematik. Hans gets the Flammenwerfer. Jawohl!
I had to do it. But the Flamethrower is actually a pretty fun weapon to use in combat. It's not the most effective, it's actually surprisingly the least effective out of the pack itself. I think it's better than the Molder PP, but it's sitting at the lower end of the meta. But it's a lot of fun to use and is really, really good for crowd control against the weaker machines. And if you do a little bit of like a spinny thing and get the friggin' napalm to spread all over the place, you can actually do some pretty okay damage to the bigger machines. I mean, you know, this is how it goes with the Flammenwerfer, but give it a second here, give it a sec. Okay, give it one more second. There you go. I think one of the biggest pluses for the Flamethrower, outside of its excellent reload animation, is the fact that you can make doggos dance with it. Now we can finally actually have our secret hidden robot dance parties. But yeah, the Flamethrower, it's a pretty far cry from a God Slayer, that's for sure. But again, just like I was saying for the S-21, even the weak weapons in Generation Zero serve their purpose, if not for effectivity, at least for enjoyment factor. And as a final aside for the Flamethrower, it's pretty good for dealing with ticks, but again, it kind of feels like a bit of a waste of ammunition. Okay, so now for the really fun and kind of nerdy stuff. When hip firing the bow, always remember that the arrow is going to fly from, because your character's right-handed, so it's going to fly from the right-hand perspective, and therefore will always kind of be in the upper right region of your crosshair. It's a kind of crazy crosshair to look at in the first place, but you've got your dead center, which that's where your arrow is going to kind of like interconnect and reach like the middle point of its flight. Then you have the two lines on the side, and you can utilize these for gauging the amount of distance that you have to kind of lead your target by in order to get your arrow to land on a fast-moving target. It could be very easy to overcompensate for the bow, imagining that the arrow will have far more drop than it does, which is why I highly advise you utilize the bow scope, the kind of 3-pin sight, in order to gauge distance and learn how the arrows are going to drop, so that way you can utilize them when hip firing a little bit more effectively. In order to utilize the bow the best, you have to be pretty good at gauging distance, and the way you can improve on your ability to gauge distance, especially when using the scope, is by placing down a marker in the world. That way you can utilize that to kind of figure out, like, okay, it's 50 meters, so I have to go about yay far into my scope in order to get the arrow to connect properly. Again, I highly advise when you're dealing with any sort of new weapon to invest into a couple hundred rounds and take it off to the Skype Club or some sort of target range and really get to learn the weapon. As well, because of Generation Zero's modeled physics and the way the arrow drop works, you're able to actually utilize them for bombardment. And when you fire a shot at the kind of peak apex, you go roughly about 60 meters. It can be pretty hard to gauge, where that arrow is going to fly off to and stuff, but it's a pretty cool trick shot, and who knows, maybe someday I'll be pulling it off here. Also, no way, man! I managed to score a perfect bullseye! No, but on the real, it's easier to follow your bombardment shot when you shoot off something like a flare or one of the explosive rounds, because that leaves a clear indentation on the ground. So, if you want to practice it, those are the arrows to practice with. For the RPM test, we were able to shoot off roughly about 39, 40-ish arrows in the span of a minute, and even though that might not sound high in comparison to, guns with a fire rate of 500 rounds per minute in the game, still, I think the world record, or the Guinness World Record or something like that, for shooting the maximum amount of arrows in a minute was like 10 or something like that. So, your boy in this game is certified legless. We managed to stick a frickin' log into this target. I know it's not the way we're going to be using the bow for the most part, like nobody's going to be just hip firing like mad, but still it's pretty crazy. You can also put a vision module onto the bow's scope, and due to its maximum amount of peripheral vision, you can pretty much have any vision mode you need at your fingertips. I know a target range isn't where you'd normally test a pitchfork out at, but we're gonna make do here. So the pitchfork serves as a brand new light melee weapon, kind of going more along the lines of the brawn ball bat as opposed to the sledgehammer. But the massive benefit to the pitchfork is its amount of reach. It's got roughly 2 to maybe 3 times the amount of reach of your typical melee weapon. Both the brawn ball bat and the pitchfork have the exact same attack speed, so neither one of them is faster than the other. I think due to its reach, though, the pitchfork serves as the ultimate light melee weapon, at least currently here in Generation 0. And for the final weapon, probably another one that you shouldn't be testing at a typical target range, we're gonna figure out what's going on with this flamethrower here. One of the most important things to know about the flamethrower is how far you can reach with it, which is roughly about 20 meters. It's not the craziest amount of range, but again, the flamethrower serves more as a fun gun than something sitting at the top of the meta. And then for the final important need-to-know factor for the flamer is its RPM, or I guess in this case FPM, for fuel per minute. And with a 5 crown magazine, you can fit 3 full tanks in the span of a minute, or roughly around 450 fuel. And so, what's the final verdict or the ultimatum on this pack? And it is a must-buy here for Generation 0. This is hands down one of the most originally created packs that we've gotten so far. It offers some of the most unique gameplay value in terms of both the stealth meta and then the flamethrower for its kind of just ridiculousness. It's a really, really awesome pack. The bow alone makes it worth it, but the other 2 weapons that you get are awesome additions, not only to the melee meta, but as well as a completely brand new type of weapon. I guess 2 of them are completely brand new types of weapons. You need to pick this pack up. So, my dudes, thank you very much for watching this video. Again, thank you very much to the team for giving me the opportunity to get my hands on this pack early. It gave me the opportunity to get all of this testing done, plus a little bit of extra bonus content that you dudes are going to catch along the next couple days here. But again, thank you for watching, happy farming, enjoy the pack if you pick it up, and I will catch you all in the next one. Until then, peace.